Hello chaps, it is a bonus cookery video. I know I was supposed to be doing these a lot more regularly than I have done, but I'm working my way up to it, I promise. So this morning I was out picking beetroot. I picked two different types of beetroot. One is a very, very pale one, it's almost like a white with a pink blush to it. And the other one was like a proper, I'm a beetroot, you know, like red, raw kind of beetroot. So I picked a couple of both of those and I'm going to use both of them in this recipe together. This has been an incredible year for beetroot. And I don't think it was until I really started growing my own and growing a lot of it and different varieties that I really understood what a fantastic vegetable it is. Previous to that, really the only way I ever found beetroot was as pickled beetroot, you know, like big, either whole or big fat slices in pickling liquor, which, to be fair, with a bit of ham, utterly delicious. But I don't think it really tells you much about how incredible beetroot is. Oh, also borscht. Lots of beetroot soup in my past. There's something really magical about beetroot, and I think this salad really brings that out of them. So another thing that's been really successful this year is basil. So this morning I was up there picking a big, like whopping nice fat handful of basil and an apple. I also picked an apple. That is the three main ingredients that we're working with. Also, there's a bit of feta and a few other bits and pieces in there, but basically this is a salad that shows off the joy of beetroot. It is sour, sweet, salty, crunchy, soft, all the things you could possibly want out of a mouthful of food. And I think if you've previously been a little meh about beetroot, give this a go and tell me what you think. We have basil, beetroot, and an apple. Oh, and a bit more basil. First thing I'm going to do is just rinse the beetroot off, nip the leaves out. I'll pull a bit of the tail off, you know, where it's got all the extra roots, but I'm not going to peel it. I'm not going to do anything to it other than get the worst of the dirt off. Pull off the tassels, pull off the leaves. Some of those leaves can actually be saved for salad leaves, but I'll sort them out in a minute. And I'm going to wrap these in a ball of foil and stick them in a pretty hot oven. Not absolutely boiling hot, but I'd say probably gas 7-ish. I shall put on the screen what that is, a non-gas temperature. But I'm not going to peel them because once you've put them in foil and roasted them, they peel magnificently and you don't get any wastage. So I've nicely splashed mud everywhere. This thing only got this huge foil. I think it was left over from Christmas. Massive. Nothing else other than bung them in the foil, wrap them right up so they're all covered and shove them in the oven. It'll take about 45 minutes, give or take. You can unwrap them and just stab them with a knife. You just want them to be tender all the way through. They don't want to be mushy or anything. Yeah, and now we wait. Okay. Let's see if these guys are cooked. Yep, they are good to go. So these are incredibly hot. From this point, just going to let them go cold. Now they're cooked. If you've got, say, 20 beetroots that you need to know what to do with, just shove them all in the oven and cook them that way, and then put them in a container and leave them in the fridge until you need to use them for something else. I'm going to use all of these for what I'm making today. I prefer this way of cooking them to boiling for a number of reasons. Firstly, the flavour is so much more intense than boiled beetroot, and the texture's nicer, in my opinion. Anyway, I'm going to let these cool down and then I'll show you how easy they are to peel once you've done that to them. Okie dokie, we should be nice and cool. Yes, we are. Okie dokie, so now they're cool, you can just see how the skin just glides off them. So easy, you don't get any, you know, if you peel with a proper, you know, like a vegetable peeler, you lose loads of the really nice flesh underneath. Just sealing them up in a bag, they kind of steam inside the rolled foil. You just get absolutely perfect peeled beetroot. You still have to top and tail them, but you know. Okay, once the beetroot is cooked and cool, an apple, basil, and some feta cheese that's still in the fridge. But this is the basics of it, and then there's a couple of things you can do to make it more of a meal or more of a side dish. First thing we're going to do is matchstick the apple. Now you can peel the apple, but considering that the majority of the apple's nutrients is actually in its skin, I tend to leave the skin on of an apple whenever I can. And this is being matchsticked, so it's really not that noticeable in the salad. So you want to cut these really nice and fine. So although the apple is providing a little bit of sweetness in this, obviously the majority of the sweetness is coming from that beetroot. So you want to choose an apple that's pretty tart. I wouldn't go for a cooking apple, that's a little too extreme, but it wants to be a tart eating apple. Okay, so you want a nice big sized bowl. Stick the apple in. I tend to go apple first, and then I don't put the beetroot in until quite late in the game, because otherwise it just stains all of the apple purple as beetroot does. Talking of holding on to colour though, apple goes brown very, very quickly. So once you've got that in the bowl, just a real quick squeeze of lemon over the top of it, which also helps with the sharpness, but it does prevent it from going brown too quickly. Okay, next thing to go into here is going to be the basil. Now I remember the controversy years ago. You remember when Jamie Oliver was first starting out, or first not starting out, but first becoming like well known? He made waves by saying never use a knife on basil because it goes brown, crushes it rather than you should be ripping it. And 9 times out of 10, I would absolutely agree with him, but I want it to be really quite fine in here, and I don't have the patience to rip slivers. So I'm terribly sorry, Jamie, but today we're going with a knife. It's quite a large bunch of basil I've got. I guess if this was something you were going to be buying the ingredients for, it would be a whole small bag of basil from the supermarket, you know, when you can buy it in a big bunch like that. You just want to give it a really good slice so that it's in little ribbons, and chuck that straight in with the apple. Feta, which provides the real salty flavour. Now, where is my feta? Oh, there it is. Hidden. Okay, so the feta cheese, if I was doing a Greek salad, it would be very much more keeping it in big cubes. Whereas actually, this salad I found I can't get this blooming thing open. It's got a little thingy on the side to say peel here, but there's no peeling happening, so I'm going to slice it. Yeah, Greek salad, I'd leave it really big and chunky because you want that individual bit. But when I've made this salad before, it actually works better chopped quite fine, and then it mixes in really well. It kind of forms, although you do get the chunks of feta, it also forms part of the dressing. Just allows it to crumble that little bit more. Next up, in goes the beetroot. So I'm just going to top and tail it where it's got the little hard ends. I quite like having the combination of different beetroots, but they are quite different in flavour. These are much more intense, the really dark ones, and this has got a much lighter flavour. Still very beetrooty, but it just gives a little bit of some extra sort of nuance. I mean, obviously any beetroot you've got is going to be fantastic, but it's nice sometimes just to have a little bit of a mix. You can add your dressing. It's a drizzle of balsamic and a drizzle of really good olive oil. And there you have it, as perfect accompaniment to a steak, a jacket potato, anything like that. Just a perfect accompaniment. However, we're going to be having this for our lunch as sort of a standalone. So I'm going to add 2 ingredients to it, which will make this go from a salad to a meal. So the first thing we need is a can of chickpeas. And some stale or otherwise pretty solid bread. So we need two pans. We need some, not the good olive oil, we need the cooking olive oil. This one. I'm only going to use half the can of chickpeas, and normally I would drain them before I use them, but because I'm going to keep this to use for something else, I'm just going to scoop the chickpeas that I want out rather than just drain the whole thing and chuck them in. So I need a slotted spoon. Do I have a slotted spoon? Of course I don't. Oh, there's one. It's too big to go in the jug. Let's just get a normal spoon. So a bit of oil in the pan, and then about half the can's worth of chickpeas. That doesn't look like a lot of chickpeas, but actually these are complete whoppers. These are like twice the size of a normal chickpea. I'm not entirely sure why, so I don't really need more than that. So while that's sizzling away, couple of reasonably thin slices of whatever kind of naff bread you got going on. I mean, this is nice, but it's pretty dense. I've often used, you know, just sliced bread that's not like cheap white sliced bread, because that just goes to nothingness, but anything that's got a bit of body to it, and it can be stale, as long as it's not, you know, mouldy. It's just gone a bit hard. So we're just going to cut these up. Once this olive oil is hot, in the other pan I've just chucked the little cubes of bread in there. I'm just going to brown them off. We don't want them to be burnt because the bitterness just really, sometimes I really like quite burnt croutons. I'm not against a bit of burnt carcinogens in my dinner, but in this case it doesn't really work with the apple and the freshness of the what else is in there. So you want them to be browned off but not incinerated, basically. Whereas with the chickpeas, you really want them to have got quite a crunch going on the outside. These are really starting to take on quite a bit of brown colour now. Once the chickpeas and the croutons are at the desired level of crunchiness, drain them out of the olive oil onto a bit of kitchen roll or something just to absorb a bit of the grease, and give them a sprinkle with some nice rock salt. Chuck the crunchy chickpeas in, chuck the breadcrumbs in, bit of olive oil, bit of balsamic, and then I'm going to get my hands in. I know some people like to use salad tossers, but I just prefer it with my hands. They are clean. Apart from the fact that they're stained pink from the beetroot, they are clean. Give that a really good mix around. And that is it. Super simple, really tasty. Adding the chickpeas and the croutons just gives it that bit more body and crunch and makes it much more satisfying. But both ways, absolutely delicious.
I'm thinking of that. We've got that tub under the piano down there. I don't know what that's for. Delicious. Delicious beetroot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brings out a different sort of flavour in it.
Basil and beetroot, really funny combination. Like it changes the flavour of both of them. Oh, good. Oh, good. And the crunchy oh, excuse me. Just having that bread and the chickpeas in there goes from salad to just being a meal in its own right. It's really just delicious. Absolutely delicious.